big shifts happening in the Nigerian market. We've got the bourse planning to widening its trading day for a second time to 7 hours in the next 2 months to try and attract more US investors its way. Market reaction to the move, because one can only assume that that means good things in terms of creating a more vibrant market moving forward.
Yes, I think so, Alishia, and good morning. I think what you've been saying is that there's been a lot of reforms, positive reforms on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. I think we've extended, we initially extended it to about 5 hours, and to gradual move to 7 hours is a welcome development. That will attract investors in different geographical regions to be able to invest in the market. But we've seen a number of positive reactions, generally speaking, as we widen access to our markets.
Of course, ever since the hours were widened by 2 hours in December, we've seen the value of deals increase by 15% in those first 2 months. Of course, there's also talk of removing that 5% cap on individual daily share price movements. Any progress or developments on that front?
I think a lot of discussions have been had on the issues, and there are, people on divided side of the fence. Some people are that we should remove it, but some people still think that for a frontier market such as ours, that it acts as a circuit breaker, and that the 5% limit up or limit down should still be maintained. I think people from more developed markets, so if you see investors, say from the US, UK, generally want to see the price limit removed so that share prices can quickly find their value on any given day. But I think, the discussion is still ongoing, and we might probably, at first, I guess what might probably happen is that they might widen the band from plus or minus 5% to say maybe 7.5 to start with. But as you're well aware, even in the developed markets, when you have a very large shift, what tends to happen is that particular stock is placed on suspension while the regulatory authorities then take a closer look to ensure that the trades are in fact legitimate.
Of course, this restructuring process happening before we press ahead with demutualization plans on that end, and determining valuation for the bourse is one of the key factors being taken into consideration. So talking about valuation, what are you making of current valuation at the bourse? Because it seems that the reprieve that we saw at the end of last week with bargain hunters coming to the fore was pretty short-lived given yesterday's performance.
I think the market, what we see, and I totally agree with you, but I think what the market is looking for are results. The market needs some catalyst. The banking results for financial year 2010 is a bit overdue, and we expect to start to see that results, but before the end of this week into next week. And I say, in the absence of that, people are asking questions that, look, our expectations of, decent earnings for 2010, especially from the banks, would that actually then happen? Our own view is that we still expect that, the markets will end up quite positive, slightly better than next year, and we think that valuations are still, in fact, reasonable. So I think for a lot of investors that have seen the market rally very strongly in January, it represents a decent reprieve to get into the market.
Yeah. Any reasons, Olumide, that have been dished out in terms of why we're seeing such a delay with some of the banking institutions coming to the fore with results? Because we know that numbers were anticipated to have filtered through by the end of last month already.
I think the major issue, which has finally been cleared, at least for the banking anyway, was the issue between the Nigerian Accounting Standard Board for the provisioning for total assets that banks are supposed to make, which is 1% of their total loan value. I think that has finally been bedded, and I think all the regulators and the Nigerian Accounting Standard Boards have cleared that issue. So I think it's just dotting the I's, crossing the T's, and I'm sure by the end of this week we should start to see those results, and that will probably then give a sense of direction as investors then, start to allocate their portfolios accordingly. But what we've just seen is people waiting on the sidelines and gradually taking a bit of profit where they see it.
And so ahead of that then, what's your strategy within the banking arena specifically? Are you sticking to the big caps that tried and tested more than anything else right now?
For us, yes, we see medium to long-term value. We believe in value investing, and we are taking a look at the big banks. But I think what will give us a conviction, as well as a lot of investors, is when we see just where the 2010 numbers do come in. Our own forecast, we have our own forecast, but we want to get some reinforcement by actually saying what the true position is. We're fairly optimistic.
Having said that, there's quite a few foreign banks still showing interest in Nigeria's banking sector, highlighting the growth potential that the sector still boasts. We had South Africa's Standard Bank saying last week that it's intent on Nigeria. Still, JP Morgan Chase wants to open up a full branch in Nigeria by next year. To what extent or what impact are these expressions of interest having on sentiment right now?
I think generally it's very early days to actually say. I don't think the local or domestic players are still bothered just as yet. But I think once those banks then come in and then establish full-fledged branch, bring the capital which they need to bring in under the current dispensation, I think the thinking is it will take them some time to get some traction. JP Morgan has a rep office, as you just mentioned, and it will take time to attract the right sort of talents, and then you then build a full-scale operation. But having said that, because these are strong global banks that have established track records in establishing themselves in emerging markets, we still think that the domestic players do have to keep an eye on them to ensure that they don't cherry pick the big corporates.
Well, looking at the day ahead, Olumide, anything specific you've got your eye on? What are your expectations for the trading day today?
Well, the first thing I'm hoping for is that we get a few results in as soon as we do that, because what we've just seen is zigzag downward trend in the market. We expect that the volatility will still stay until we do get those results. So my own expectation is that I'd like to see some numbers come in and to give investors some sense of direction.